When I love someone, I make food for them. It's just my way of showing that I care about them. When someone I love cooks for me, I see it as a very moving gesture. Caring about someone to the point of wanting to provide for them in a way is just sweet, you know? I think that's a big part of what drew me into Dead Plate. The intersection of love and hunger is a topic that is particularly compelling to me, which is what I want to explore with you today. But specifically the way these themes are shown throughout the dishes that we get at the end of each shift and ending. Besides the grilled hanger steak or the cold-fired heart, I haven't seen many people talking about the meanings of food we get, which I think is strange since the game revolves so much around food. So I'm taking one for the team. As always, there will be spoilers and disturbing content listed in this video, since it is, well, a horror game. The warnings for this game should be on screen currently. Please proceed with caution if you are sensitive to any of these subjects. There's no shame in clicking off either if you can't handle them. Please take care of yourself. And of course, these are simply my interpretations of the dishes. If you have a different opinion, that's totally okay. Just maybe don't attack me or others for it, yeah? This is all just for fun, and it is a piece of fiction. One last thing. A big thank you to my friend Lucian, or ghostinseason/ghostinseason on most platforms. I'll be linking his stuff in the description. I had to play this game like 3 times for this video, and he was here for all of them, and he helped me out sort of with the research and everything. So, everyone say thanks, Lucian. Now that that's out of the way, let's sink our teeth into this 10-course meal together, shall we? After meeting the quota each day, you are gifted with a dish. When your first shift finishes, you receive green onion rolls. It's worth saying that for all of the savory dishes, except this one, there's a type of protein that's the star of the show, usually being some kind of meat. This one centers more around dough and vegetables, less of a main dish or a dessert, rather an appetizer. This makes me think that this dish is sort of a fresh beginning for both Rody and Vince. During this shift, Vince is uncharacteristically patient towards Rody and tries to point him in the right direction in a surprisingly gentle way in comparison to how he treats his chefs. Appetizers fill you up a little, but it's not as satisfying as a full meal is. It makes me think of the earliest stages of love, something fresh and new, but leaves you wanting more. Day 2 brings blueberry crepes, and with it, the elephant in the room. This game leans pretty hard into the idea of love and what it means to the 3 central characters that are the beating heart of the story, so to say. We know that Rody and Manon are very much in love with each other, as evidenced by Rody taking up this whole job in hopes of winning her back, and calling her every day if you choose to make him do that. Manon also presumably had a locket with photos of her and Rody in it when she died, despite having written Vince many love letters we find in the trash of his office. Her ending speech also further proves this, since she wants to look out for her and Rody's well-being. But I'd be foolish to leave out Vince. He doesn't love Manon, and he never really cared about her. He admits this, and I feel inclined to believe him. Rody, on the other hand, well, it's not hard to see that Vince undeniably cares about him, more than just becoming the test subject in his newest experiment in cooking with love. On this day, he goes as far as to personally dry Rody's hair for him when he gets wet from the rain, and offers his umbrella to him, despite the two only having known each other for a small handful of days. There's an undeniable fondness for Rody that he has. I mean, hell, just look at how he reacts to Rody versus one of his chefs making a minor mistake. I don't think this sort of affection is a type that comes from just being close with an employee or attempting to make a friend. I think this is a queer romantic type of affection. I mean, look at all the food Rody receives supposedly from Vince, which we know he at least does try. And none of this food looks like the dishes that's served in the restaurant each day, so it's something Vince makes for Rody especially. And of these dishes, a large handful are desserts. And of these desserts, all of them are fruit-based. Fruit and queerness have a long history of going hand in hand as related themes. According to Where Does the Term Fruity Come From by Leah Frankel from The Owl, she states that this term came from Britain in the 1800s from the LGBTQ+ community and sex workers at that time. Nowadays, the term holds pretty much the same meaning of being a reclaimed term to describe gay men or the behavior that is considered queer. Since the desserts are all fruit-based, it doesn't feel unreasonable to suspect that it perhaps hints to Vince's romantic interest in Rody. Squid Ink Pasta is the 3rd dish you receive. After experiencing the scene where Rody cuts his finger and Vince hits him, then promptly takes care of him, we're shown more of Vince's fondness towards his waiter. For a moment, the scene turns monochrome, except for the red from the blood. The pasta dish takes on a similar appearance with the pink shrimp being drowned in a sea of black. This is also the first dish we see that has meat in it. Considering Vince's strong gaze during this scene, this might be the day that he gets the idea in his head to feed Manon to Rody. The love that he had morphed into obsession after only 3 days. Perhaps his insatiable hunger for love is part of what caused him to spiral. Alright, my crazy hot take for day 4. I don't think that Vincent Charbonneau actually gave Rody a real rat shortcake. I think it's more of a visual representation of how Vince's jealousy is poisoning his own dishes. Even the sweetest acts, such as Vincent cooking for Rody, are poisoned by his jealousy and obsession towards feeling love and his inability to cook with it. There's 2 versions of the strawberry shortcake that you can get on this day. The normal version and the poisoned version, which could represent the 2 main sides of Vincent. The side of him that's charismatic and considerate, and the side of him that's obsessive and cruel. The further Rody goes down this rabbit hole with Vince, the more he sees both sides of him. After the shift and the closing hour, you get Croque Madame, which definitely screams Manon to me. The mostly brown color palette and the flies surrounding the dish feel reminiscent of her color scheme, and the flies that would be swarming around her dead body. Not to mention the very feminine title of the dish, which aligns with Manon quite well. During the closing hour, it seems to pretty heavily imply that Manon was being chopped up in the freezer, so receiving this dish feels quite fitting, and also a foreshadowing to Manon's state that is revealed in the later endings. My research assistant also pointed out that there's slices of meat that can be seen underneath the fried egg, which is another thing that Manon becomes during this night. It's a turning point of sorts, with Vince going through his plan of killing and mismembering Manon. Meanwhile, Rody is further struggling with the disappearance of her. This is also the last night you can call her before the dinner party. Outside Rody's window that night, you can see a silhouette of a person in another apartment, which seems like another omen about the dinner party to come. The fresh lemon tart is the last of the end-of-shift dishes. The lemon, of course, is reminiscent of Vince, and perhaps he's trying to get more on Rody's good side before he serves him his ex-girlfriend. Vince spends all day in his office during this day, which seems like he has a hard time facing Rody after butchering Manon, and yet he still invites him over to the dinner party. It could also be seen as a type of foreshadowing for the party, in the way that Vince has a lemon tree in the corner of his kitchen, but that might be a stretch. Perhaps it's just the signifier of the calm before the storm. A hanger steak is a cut of meat from the body of a cow. Hanger steak is found in a section called the plate. The dead plate. I think this feels very telling for how Vince sees Manon. To him, she wasn't even a person deserving of his love. She was livestock to be cared towards and then slaughtered and eaten. We see some conflicting dialogue from Rody during this ending and ending 3. Here, she's described as tasting bitter. In the third ending, he says that he's never eaten any of Vince's food. However, Rody says at the dinner party that Vince hosts that his food doesn't taste genuine and that it lacks love. So, which is it? I'm gonna take a stab and say that in the third ending, Rody was lying and just said that to further provoke Vince. At risk of using material outside the game for my analysis, Rachel Draws This, one of the developers of the game, made some posts advertising the merchandise of the game last December, and that included an interesting note amongst the advertisement. I'll read it out for you now. Want to get along with your terrifying boss or enable your girlfriend's interest in baking? Note, it always comes out bitter. For New Year's Eve? Which could be nothing. Or, it's an interesting little nod to Manon herself tasting bitter no matter how sweet she seems. It's a bit fascinating, isn't it? The way the main three's way of showing love correlates to how they make food. Vince's lacks real emotion, like he's never being fully genuine about how he feels. Rody's has too much emotion into his food and is over-cared for to the point of being ruined. Manon's is almost perfect, but always too bitter. Like, she tries the best she can, but it always just comes off as harsh. Anyways, something else I think worth noting is that in Vince's living room, there's a cowskin rug, which I think adds further to the motif surrounding her. I mean, you can find her hair in the trash can of his bathroom, so the rug certainly wouldn't be the only clue pointing towards her being disposable in Vince's eyes. Another bit of foreshadowing for this meal can be found on the cover of Rody's magazine. A steak, lemons, and wine are all featured on there, which seems like it represents all the characters well. In the other endings, we see the hanger steak on the counter as well, so, I think it's pretty telling that this dish can be found in 3 out of the 4 endings. I dare us to go as far in saying that this is the most important meal in the game. This ending and ending 4 are eerily similar, and yet their dishes are vastly different. The cherry vanilla gelato, of course, describes Rody's fate, but I also feel like it's a nice nod to Vince's demeanor during the whole cutscene as well. He's more frosty towards Rody. Also, if Manon's body isn't already thrown out in the garbage, she's likely in there as well, so we have all 3 of them represented in this dessert. The red cherries, the white gelato, and the brown chocolate all line up with their main colors quite well. It's also worth noting that the red cherries make an appearance in the other ending dish that shares a name with this one, too, though it is the only component to make a reappearance. I know we're going a little out of order with these now, despite having done so for the rest of the video, but trust me, I'm saving the best for last. After the credits for the ending roll, and we hear the god-awful meat saw noise for a time that feels far too long to be comfortable, we're served the coal-fired heart. It really does feel like the dish that's being made for us, the audience. Due to the fact that Vince has killed 2 people, it's hard to say for certain whose heart is on the platter. I'd put my money on it being Rody, though. Given the fact that Rody's been established to represent the color red in other dishes, this one feels fully decked out in his color. It feels safe to assume that this is his heart. During this ending, we also see everything in grayscale except for Rody's red blood. This could be a way of showing which ending is the true one, but I think that this color coordination also shows how, without Rody, Vince's life lacks color. Also, of course, the guy who has been hungry to taste anything at all, craves to have his dishes feel like they have love in them, consumes the heart of the man who has perhaps captured his. Aside from the rat shortcake and the rotten eggs, all the dishes Vince have given to Rody so far have been pristine, well executed, and everything you'd expect from a professional chef. This dish, however, is not. It doesn't reek of death, though. The toppings look like they've been burnt to a crisp, the cake is charred and seems to have melted, giving it that lopsided look, and the fruit pieces are scattered around haphazardly. It looks more to me like a dish that was made by an amateur baker. On one hand, this could show Vince's spiral out of control. His once clinical perfections have become sloppy mistakes because of his obsession. We all make mistakes in the heat of passion, Rody. Losing himself in this madness has allowed him to mess up for the final time in his kitchen. On the other hand, this does seem more like Rody's method of cooking. I mean, the guy burned cereal. If this dish is supposed to represent Rody's cooking, then it might show that Rody has regained his power back from Vince. In the vanilla cherry gelato from the best served cold ending, we see all 3 of the major important characters represented in it. However, in this one we only see Rody and Vince, represented with the lemon and the cherries and of course the fire. Manon's absence from the whiskey lemon cake reads to me as Rody finally being able to come to terms with her leaving him in more ways than one. Manon will never come back to him, and there's a good chance she wouldn't have even if she was still alive. In the first ending, he quits his job after getting enough money to take Manon out on a dinner date. The goal was never to show that he could pay his bills, or to show that he could be independent from his former girlfriend. The struggle he has with devoting his whole life to making someone else happy is not one that was solved in that ending. But on ending 3, which I believe is the true ending of Dead Plate, he does finally overcome that intense devotion. The last line Rody speaks as he watches the restaurant go up in flames is, "I should really get something to eat." My research assistant pointed out the use of I in the sentence. How, for perhaps the first time in a long time, Rody is speaking about the things he wants, free of other people's influence. He followed Manon's every wish and let himself be pushed around by Vince, but now he's free to have his own agency and do what he wants for a change. But to me, this also reads as Rody acknowledging that he will love again someday. If the extended metaphor in this game with cooking is how someone shows their love, then perhaps the act of eating is to accept a person's love. For Manon, he happily accepted everything she gave him despite her harshness. For Vince, he tried, but he couldn't stand how insincere he came off. I think this shows that Rody realizes that, perhaps not now, but in time, he'll be ready to accept someone's love again. Perhaps it's not too late for him to change and open up himself again one day. Thank you so much for watching. My personal life kind of kicked my ass for a bit, and I switched laptops, which means I've been having really bad microphone issues, which you can probably tell by the quality of this video. I appreciate everyone's patience with me, though. Should have everything sorted out now, though. As of recording, I am a few subscribers shy away from 800, which is absolutely insane to me. Thank you all so much. The support means the world to me, truly. Going forward, I'll probably take a little break from Studio Investigrave analysis since my last 2 videos before this have also been over the games by the same studio. Not to say this is forever, but I want to make sure I'm branching out with my content. As always, please leave your thoughts, theories, video suggestions, or anything else in the comments below. I always love hearing what everyone has to say. If you like this video and want to see other stuff like it in the future, please consider liking this video and subscribing. Also, if you want a little bit extra from me, I have a Patreon. It's just one tier for $5 right now, where you'll get downloads to all the video backgrounds and my thumbnails, which I all draw, along with getting my videos a week early. Alright, I'll see you sometime in the future. Bye!